to drive home drunk. A minute ago, a law enforcement officer pulled up behind Kyle.
Sir, have you been drinking tonight?
A chain of events that began 2 hours ago is about to change Kyle's whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us too in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes.
Savings are heating up, and so are the summer super deals at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. You don't need super strength to get approved for credit. Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is super easy on the Motor Mile with financing options for every budget. Sheeler makes car buying easy with the hottest brands all in one location. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Over 900 used vehicles in stock now and ready to move. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, and savings. Need some summer spending cash? Sheeler will buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Plus super money for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with over 900 used vehicles in stock now. No games, no gimmicks, just summer super deals at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer, locally owned for over 50 years. ID1 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Warm weather means traveling. Hi, I'm Randy Trost from Trost Law with a couple of safety reminders. Always wear your seatbelt. Don't drive distracted or impaired. And remember, it's better to safely arrive a little later than being in an auto accident. Those things can make a big difference between a fun family trip or a painful alternative. At Trost Law, I hope you never need our services, but if you do, we're here to help you at 777-HURT or trostlaw.com.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Trey, I have a question for you as we finally made it, by the way. Game week. I know last week was game week with week 0 of college football, and we celebrated with the doubleheader on the VTRN Sports app, which people do listen to, just for the record. But
I just listen in the morning more of our Word podcast.
It doesn't take long to get into what happened
we had to get the 19-year-old a hard time today.
I mean, 19-year-old kind of stereotypical naivety of a young person in this day and age. And so, well, if you go back to wherever we listen to podcasts,
and guess what? We keep receipts
right there. You'll find it. We own it in the fast lane. In fact, if you were wondering when I heard this come out of the speakers, my question initially is,
do you believe that? Huh?
And I really wanted to go,
no.
But unfortunately, the answer is yes, because
and guess what? We keep receipts.
So people do listen to the VTRN Sports app. We have precise streaming metrics that indicate people do listen and have listened in increasing numbers over the years. And we thank you for that, by the way, to the VTRN Sports app and however you consume us. But I have another question for you, Trey. Have you ever been on a blind date before?
No.
I have not either. I don't know if it would honestly be my thing. Like, there are some people don't like any surprises at all. I cannot tell you. It is well over 50%. Unscientifically here, I'm going with 73%. Of people that I encounter who are about to have a child and they like to know the gender in advance. Again, full disclosure to get our usher on. We adopted our kids. We didn't have a choice. First phone call for placement for what is now 2 lovely and rambunctious and challenging 7-year-old boys was an indication that there were twin boys. And that's how the process works. If you're ever curious, if you really want to get serious about it, message Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Happy to walk through that journey with you. It's not easy. Also, not the. It's a challenging situation financially as well. It can be unless you're in a spot where you've really planned for it. Just a little word to the wise there. It involves
dollar bills, y'all.
For sure. And if you have a faulty application, it will be, as Melissa McCarthy reminds us,
Rejected.
well, actually, the folks from the hair gel commercial. But the thing of it is I've learned that. So that's the one area, childbirth. Will it be a boy? Will it be a girl? If it's any other circumstance, I would prefer it to be a surprise. But a blind date, not my cup of tea. It is to some, not mine. The funny thing of it is this. In college athletics in this day and age, it kind of feels like everybody is on a blind date. Because we're in that spot right now where you really don't have an idea of your roster from year to year. And yes, you can be the Virginia Tech Hokies with Kyron Drones, who's returning. Yes, you can be the JMU Dukes, who have either Alonzo Barnett, who is back in contact in practice, by the way. We'll get to that to kick off covering the Commonwealth with Shane Metland around 5:25 today. But he, or familiar with head coach Bob Chesney, Matt Saluka. But you don't really know. Now, the coaching staff, a little bit different familiarity because they've coached one last season at JMU and Barnett, and they've coached another previously at Holy Cross and Matt Saluka. So it's a little bit different. But Liberty, new quarterback. Clearly, there wasn't a lot of confidence, it seemed, last week when Jamie Chadwell met with the media. Now, that might have changed. Saturday, practices in between now and then. We'll get an update Thursday of this development. So normally it's Tuesday of game week. Maybe they're doing Thursday all throughout the year. Maybe it's a one-off situation. Tend to think it's the latter because that's kind of the information we've gotten. So maybe they're trying to drag this quarterback competition out a little further to get more clarity. Or maybe it's just the way the schedule broke. Sometimes those things happen as well and totally understandable. But, from a fan and what you're getting with your team perspective, it is a unique blind date feel. And not to mention Virginia. New quarterback Chandler Morris. Do you get the good version at TCU? Do you get the okay version at North Texas? Do you get the version of him that's been banged up and has had injuries behind an offensive line now that's missing projected starting left tackle Monroe Mills and starting right tackle Monroe as well? You had two offensive linemen for Virginia out, not to mention plenty of others, especially on the back half of that defense with linebacker Cam Robinson and, as LeBron would remind us,
Not one, not two, not three.
well, technically three, I guess, not four, but three defensive backs who have suffered knee injuries and are out for the year for the Virginia Cavaliers. Because of all that, it feels like a blind date with your team in college football. Again, even for Virginia Tech, and you'll hear their game for free, Sunday, 1 p.m. airtime, 3 p.m. kick. Good Lord willing, I'll be there with TJ down in Atlanta for the Aflac kickoff game. But, for Virginia Tech, you have an idea of good Kyron Drones, but do you know which one you're getting? I think you have a better idea because you've at least seen him in your offense or at least at your school. Granted, it's a new offense with Philip Montgomery, but the pieces around him are totally different. They've either transferred, exhausted eligibility, or, actually departed early for the NFL draft, not to mention on defense. Like, this is the norm in college football. And so I think more than ever now, where I'm getting with this is it's more important than ever to have an emotional connection to the coach because you're not going to have nearly the emotional connection to your players, even at schools like Tech and UVA. Now, if you're a premier program in college athletics and you've got the financial resources, code for
Dollar bills, y'all.
to pay for attention, read Georgia into the mix. Read, in our own ACC backyard, the Clemson Tigers, who they had 3 transfers, which is a high number for them, higher than ever, it seems, for Dabo Swinney. But by and large, let's be real here. Do you think they just don't pay? If they did not pay, they would lose all their players to other schools. Or do you think they really genuinely prefer to just use the NFL parlance here, draft and develop at Clemson? Recruit guys, develop guys, pay them internally, and have chemistry. Part of the reason I'm actually bullish on Clemson this year, but I may look like a moron by the time Saturday night rolls around if they lose to LSU. Not an easy opener. But that's the norm, the abnormal situation, Clemson. Most programs, you're going to have this. So you have to feel the connection to your coaching staff more than ever. Liberty, clearly, I think they've got that with Jamie Chadwell. For Virginia, I think they definitely do not have it. Probably the least of the schools with Tony Elliott. I know they've invested in the program this year, but I don't get a lot of sense that Virginia fans are anything more than, okay, we've got to at least make a bowl game here because of a cake schedule and the amount of money that's been invested in resources. Like anything lower than, 6 wins, if you get fewer than 6, you're out the door. unless, the athletic department thinks otherwise, and who knows what they're thinking sometimes. But, anything less than that, I think, fans deservedly will have apathy set in. Heck, I think really 7 is the benchmark for Virginia. 6.5 has been the win total. I know they've had offensive line injuries, but that's what you need. For Virginia Tech, I think people like Brent Pry. He sounds like what you would want in a coach of the Hokies, but 1-12 in one-score games. The only win was when Liberty had one foot out the door with head coach Hugh Freeze back in Brent Pry's first year. And so there's just not a lot of results for that. Now, they believe they've taken corrective measures, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, Stanton River Golden Eagle star, and now turned strength coach Jarrett Ferguson. A lot of people are pointing to him as somebody that's helping with that situation as well. But there's a little bit of a connection to that. JMU, probably about on par. It was a decent first year. You felt like maybe you let some slip away later in the year, particularly the Louisiana Monroe game. I think that's one that rankles a lot of feathers for folks in Harrisonburg. But there is a level of connection. But blind date feels right now is why you're investing more in your coaching staff and why it is so crucial to believe you've got the right coaching staff. Much like it's crucial to believe you have the right team around you if you're in an auto accident. And TrostLaw.com is the team for you. They've been serving our area for
Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4.
Correct, LeBron. A little over 4 decades. Since 1982. Trost Law serving our community since 1982. If you're in an auto accident, it's easy. Hit them up today. If you need other forms of law, that's not their area, although they've done personal injury with those type of cases, but they are very well connected and can reference you to the right person if that situation arises. That's part of the asset of having a colleague like TrostLaw.com on your side if something happens. If they can't help you, they'll let you know. If they can, even better, you deploy their multi-decade resource team at TrostLaw.com. Speaking of teams on your side and the pressure on coaches, high school football is an example of this too. I mean, look, Liberty Christian Academy, they are the standard bearer. Where they should be and how they should handle the postseason is a legitimate topic for a separate segment. But in short, if you left it up to me, schools that are private schools, I have no problem with them competing in the VHSL in the regular season. But I think they should be split into 2 separate classifications. Smaller private schools, they play 5A championships. Larger private schools, you play 6A championships. I get the rosters may not be as deep as some of those 5A and 6A schools, but let's not kid ourselves. Your access to bolstering your rosters are very good. And that's a compliment to an extent. If anything, for a school like LCA, they may not have as big of a roster as a school like Collegiate, which is in Trey's backyard in Richmond. They produce Russell Wilson, or St. Christopher's, who just sent the top interior offensive lineman to South Carolina. He committed over the weekend there. They may not be in that particular stratosphere, but they are in a unique spot where I don't think players just always transfer in. Sometimes it's legitimately moving to the area. But like quarterback Luke Gaither, I believe it that when Coach Rocco has said that hey, his family moved to the area. Dad's got a fairly flexible job, but his mom had to transfer to Lynchburg. That stuff's going to happen. Jamie Chadwell with his son as well. At LCA, they're legitimately in the area, but they're in a spot where they moved from South Carolina for legitimate business reasons. As we all know, he coaches Liberty football, but they moved to the area as well. But there's still the fact that when you've got that and you lose a guy like Gideon Davidson, I think it's reasonable to say pressure is greater at a place like LCA. And the reason being is you're going to have to be more tightened up. Gideon Davidson could erase a lot of mistakes. I mean, he's a guy that people at Clemson are very high on in terms of being able to take the next step forward and to be able to help them as a true freshman. Now, there are other parts to this, but in essence, that's one of the reasons why when we spoke with Coach Rocco a couple of weeks ago at the Seminole District Football Media Days, he thought it was legitimate to say that the pressure is greater on the coaches at LCA than ever before.
A great question, and these guys can attest to the fact that we've addressed that. We've been blessed over 20 years we've won a lot of football games. So, there's a lot of games won before we had a Gideon Davidson. And although Gideon's a great player and a lot of our success could be attributed to him, we've won a lot of football games with Jaden Cowart and Austin Tremblay and guys just like them. So our anticipation is that we're going to, continue on just with that same expectation.
That's Coach Rocco. Frank Rocco for LCA. And look, he's one of the best in the area. They've got a really, really star-studded coaching staff over at LCA. And we could rattle off the list. The obvious one is Jake Grove, who's the former offensive lineman, the Remington Award winner at Virginia Tech, and now is the offensive line coach. And, he's fantastic. But the coaching staff, they're aware of that. And that's one of the crucial things to LCA, is the fact that they're in a spot where they still have talent. Let's not kid ourselves. Luke Gaither is a guy who's transferred in, however you want to frame it. He has moved into the Lynchburg area and is going to LCA and was getting reported offers and interest from schools like Virginia Tech and Arkansas back when he was at Radford. You've also got Austin Tremblay, the defensive lineman who is committed to Liberty. More on that when we get closer to signing day because it's a real neat local story. But you've got those players. Jamie Chadwell's son is another quarterback over at LCA. There are pieces on this roster. Jackson Manning, junior offensive lineman, high interest from a lot of Division I programs.
No relation.
No, not related to Peyton, Eli, or Arch Manning, so that we can get our mentions
Where
and
you can listen to his, first start as the full-time starter this weekend on VTR Sports.
Trey, my man, that's exactly why you're here. 11:30 a.m. airtime, VTR and Sports app this coming Saturday. You are, when you're not on top of things, you're like me. We kind of hit ruts. But when you're on top of it, you're there filling in the blanks like an all-pro, which we'll have more updates on that, by the way. 2 versions in the Fast 5 at 5-ish coming up in a moment. But, the reality of it is that's where LCA happens to be right now. They're in a spot. So they are aware that because they don't have Gideon Davidson, they have talent. They should still be expected to be a team that I would say it's very reasonable with the talent they have. They may not dominate everyone and have no game decided by fewer than, 3 touchdowns. Like, I think that's a lot to ask. But a team that is a Thanksgiving football team, meaning they're practicing the week of Thanksgiving and a chance to be playing December football. State quarters, Thanksgiving weekend, state semis, early December, state championship, mid-December. That's very reasonable given the talent they have, but the path to get there is going to require something that will probably burn Trey's ears right now. Those 3 words that he and everyone else on staff actually probably has heard more of this recently than Trey has. Trey's had to hear it by default. Attention to detail.
There might have to be a little bit greater attention to detail. Just like you said, Gideon might have been able to break a 70-yard run and he had a 2-play drive. Well, now we may have to put 10-play drives together. And that entails being a little bit crisper, a little bit more attentive to detail, possessing the ball. And so a lot of the precision parts of the game are going to have to be elite this year and being able to maintain 10 and 12 play drives.
Attention to detail. He said it twice. And for those watching Fast Lane, Ed Lane, and VTR in Sports on YouTube and Facebook Live, Trey did not cringe on either of those attention to details. So clapping for Trey. He's really on his game today. I've just
gotten used to it to tune out when you say those words.
That really warms my heart and makes me feel so good, Trey. But the point of the matter for LCA football is the talent is still there to have high expectations. The coaching staff is good enough that if you're an LCA fan, you should trust that they will have attention to detail. But the Seminole District is loaded enough that there's a chance they could lose a game or two now. This is not blow through everybody in the Seminole District and win by 3 touchdowns or more every single time. You don't have the ultimate cheat code in Gideon Davidson. You have Division I talent who can still make plays and take over games, but you have players growing into a different role. So winning a lot of games with the coaching staff and the players, I think is a very fair and reasonable expectation. It should be from here on out for LCA. Again, given their access to talent and the fact that they're in 3A football. We can debate it all we want. You know my thoughts. I think it should be they are in 5A. And then your bigger schools like Collegiate and St. Chris, they play 6A for the championships. Let them play locally. Go ahead. Let them play locally when it comes to the regular season. Minimize the travel. I get it. If I'm a Seminole team and I don't have to play an LCA in the playoffs, but they're helping prepare me for someone else in the playoffs, I'm cool with that. And I get the rosters maybe smaller again at a place like LCA than a school like Maury, which is 5A, perennial champion there, or Oscar Smith, which is 6A and a perennial champion at that particular level. But you make up for it with the access to talent in a unique way the other schools have by having larger schools. You have a unique selling proposition if you're LCA. Again, I'm not holding my breath that VHSL is going to do this, but I think it's possible. But in the meantime, if you're LCA or anybody else, you're getting your young Jeezy on and you're trying to make the best of your situation. And for LCA, I think they are very well equipped. And when you play there, you sign up for the fact as a coach that you do have those inherent advantages. And as a coach, that shifts the pressure to you. Again, confessional for a moment in the fast lane, as Usher would remind us. But we've had Matt Klein on, who used to be the coach at New Covenant and is now the boys basketball coach at LCA. He's one of the best in the area when it comes to boys basketball, but he is a big personal accountability guy, as are a lot of the coaches over there. Well, if that's the case, it's not unreasonable for us to be putting more on the coaches for LCA football this year, that you have talent, but the method to getting victories, you got to be more attentive to detail. If I'm an LCA fan, the best thing I heard is the fact that their coaching staff, they are aware of that. Meanwhile, it's time for us to make you aware of some of the other headlines in the Fast 5 at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
Trey made us aware of the news that Ian Rappaport has reported, which is the Bengals are closing in on a contract extension with defensive end Trey Hendrickson. The local angle to this, and I'm sure Trey will cover this tomorrow in the morning warm-up, as we will, by the way.
Is that guys named Trey should get raises.
I mean,
that's the angle I'm going to take.
You know, I'm sure you will, Trey, and you can keep on touting it because it might come to fruition, just not likely tomorrow. Or today. So what we're looking at, though, is it takes him off the market for the Washington Commanders. Look, don't hold your breath, Micah Parsons. First of all, he's not getting traded from Dallas. Second of all, if he is, Dallas is not trading him in division. I'm an Eagles fan. I have no hope that they would be able to trade for him either. So keep that in mind. But Trey Hendrickson, I think, was a more legitimate candidate because of the guaranteed money and the Bengals being, we'll call it frugal, if you want to call it stingy, or some people would rather call him cheap. You know what's? That's whatever it is. But he's off the market. The impact on the Commanders is they don't get a chance to bolster that pass rush with the defensive end. Maybe part of the reason why.
Number 4.
The other news that came down today involving the Commanders is they and star wide receiver Terry McLaurin 3-year, $96 million extension. So $32 million per year. He's not quite in the ballpark of your top caliber receivers like a T. Higgins or someone of that. And certainly not, or a Tyreek Hill, who I think is the best when healthy. Trey would disagree, but I think you're all kind of splitting hairs on that. The other two are Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, who are at the $40 million a year threshold. I don't think McLaurin, honestly, should be in that category, but it brings
he's in a good second-tier receiver, I would say.
I would say from a payroll standpoint, he's a good number 1, but there's 1, and then there's elite 1. And I think he's a good number 1 receiver, not a good, elite number 1, which is Hall of Fame.
Weird to say he's the 3rd best receiver, and he's I would put him on the same level as Devontae Smith, making him the 3rd or 4th best receiver in his own division. But that's because 2 of the top 4 are in your division.
Yeah, with CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown as well. Meanwhile, nuggets that go on in the world of football is
number 3.
JMU head coach Bob Chesney saying that Alonzo Barnett III was cleared for contact last week, but no starting decision has been made for the Dukes. Shane Metlin warned us of this last week, and we'll ask him about it in a moment, but the idea of dragging this up closer to kickoff seems to be a development that JMU is taking. I get and understand why you would wait until this coming Saturday's opener, but this is the type of situation for JMU where, personally, I like Barnett a little more. Honestly, I think I found him to be more reliable. He's more, seems to be, the bond with him in the locker room has been stronger, but, I get the gamesmanship here, and Matt Saluka, there's system familiarity as well. Meanwhile,
number 2,
Ryan Blaney reportedly owing Austin Dillon 7 million beers because Ryan Blaney's victory knocked out 5 potential challengers.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5.
I guess you could say not 5, maybe even more than 5. There were a number of win and get into the chase drivers that were battling for that victory at Daytona Saturday night. But ultimately, Ryan Blaney, who's already won this year and would have gone anyway as a high points racing driver, he gets the win and helps Alex Bowman get in, with Bowman crashing out earlier in the race. Look, I thought that was the exact thing you want at Daytona, which to me is, as much as it is anything, while the car may produce its challenges, some of it's the mindset of drivers. Because the intensity of the racing, I thought you felt it very early in that race at Daytona Saturday night. Whereas other tapered spacer tracks, particularly early season Talladega and to Daytona 500, where it's more looking like you're driving down 460 or 29 and everybody's side by side just cruising along at the same speed. I didn't think you got that Saturday. That was a redeeming quality to that particular race. Meanwhile,
number 2,
An interesting nugget and a broader element to this. Photographer walked on court last night during the U.S. Open Round 1 match. Benjamin Bonzi, match point against Daniil Medvedev. Bonzi ended up winning the match, but it was delayed by 6 minutes for the match point. Here's my angle on this. We're not going to get tennis nerdo as much as it is media knowledge. The photographer, whose name I don't know and what publication he represents, I haven't had a chance to research today just to get my usher on here in the fast lane. But when you're part of the media, you understand there are certain areas. Like, for example, being at the Aflac kickoff game and where you can be on the media, photographer or otherwise, on the sideline. It's kind of the 20-yard line to 20-yard line. There's a U shape around the end zone, for example. You can be from 120 all the way down to the end zone, all the way around, and back to the other 20. Or you can go under the stadium and underneath and work your way around if you want to go to the other end zone. But there's a blocked off area for the teams to be right near the field from the 20 to the 20 in college football. I don't know what it is in the NFL. Haven't been on the sideline in a long time for that. But you have to know that when you're in the media. And that's why the photographer being bounced for getting on the court early is something that I think is totally reasonable. And even more so, it's the moment understanding it. Getting over aggressive is one thing, but you got to be aware of where your situation is. Meanwhile, the humorous note of the weekend that you might have missed, unless you're a Liberty fan and you were doing your research, on Sam Houston in Western Kentucky. Sam Houston may have lost, but they got the victory for the best turnover prop of the year. Sorry to the Joker mask at Liberty. Sorry to the turnover chain at Miami, as gaudy and appropriate for Miami as it is. Miami should have been the one to introduce this, the bag of money as the turnover prop. In the era of NIL, I know Sam Houston's not going to outbid anyone, but that's the most hilarious way to have a turnover prop. Kudos to Sam Houston for that particular introduction. Meanwhile, we'll introduce our guests in covering the Commonwealth next here in the Fast Lane VTRN Sports app. Ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
You're seriously considering buying investment property, but you're unsure of all the steps. That's where we come in at Brownstone Properties. We're navigating different home investment journeys daily, just as we've done for decades. From buying with one of our licensed realtors to a full-service property management after the purchase, Brownstone Properties will walk with you step by step on your real estate investment journey. For a free initial consultation, call or visit us online today at brownstoneproperties.com.
Don't miss the final days of our big summer sales event at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Get a new 2025 Ram 1500 and save up to $10,000 off MSRP. Choose a new 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee and get retail bonus cash up to $3,500 off MSRP. Hurry in for huge final days discounts on over 230 pre-owned vehicles. It's almost over. Get to our big summer sales event at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford, 1750 Independence Boulevard. MagicCityBedford.com.
This fall, Saturdays belong to the Hokies.
Oh, and these Hokie fans are going crazy here in College Town, USA.
Lane Stadium, electrifying, iconic, the best in college football.
Oh, you'd have to be here to believe it.
Built by tradition and fueled by passion.
Breaks free at the 10, to the 5, touchdown Tech.
Where every roar and every cheer brings you home. Are you ready to start jumping? Tickets on sale now. Visit Hokiesports.com.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality. Build with Right Choice.
Head to lynchburg-hillcats.com to lock in your tickets for the Lynchburg Hillcats this season. Now here's VTRN Sports.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Well, here we are, cleared for contact, but not necessarily named. And not a surprise, as we get to discuss with
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
Shane Metlin, DNRonline.com, and it's Shane_DNR Sports. Shane, your colleague Katie Harper was there and was the one who helped break this news earlier today, which is Then Alonzo Barnett, the third, was cleared for practice last week, but no starter has been named, for JMU. Are you sticking by the idea that this thing might go all the way up until game time Saturday?
Probably before anything's announced. I think that's probably what they'll do, just to not kind of tip their hand. And I almost at this point would probably expect both Alonzo Barnett and Matthew Sluka to play. That's just kind of my gut feeling there. Yeah, I don't think we're probably going to see an official announcement anytime in the immediate future.
So we don't expect an announcement for we covering the JMU Dukes, nor does Shane Metlin here in the fast lane. Shane, when you look at the battle that's gone on so far and you're fit, do you have an inkling or an idea of how you, your colleague Katie Harper, and those that have been covering the Dukes this summer believe or at least think this decision should go?
I mean, I think Katie and I both agree that Alonzo Barnett, from what we've seen, we don't see everything, and we certainly don't see full speed scrimmages and things like that. But from what we've seen, he's looked really good. He's thrown the ball really well. He hasn't had to do a ton of, evading contact or anything like that. But he looks like himself. He looks ready to go, I would say. Matthew Sluka, there's always going to be kind of that question mark about just how good of a passer he actually is. But he's got a tremendous track record of moving the ball, whether he does it with his feet or his arm. So I think JMU's in pretty good shape either way. But I don't know if I have seen enough to say who it should be. But like I said, I think either one could start and JMU could be successful.
We're chatting with Shane Metlin, DNRonline.com, about the JMU Dukes, who's with us here in the fast lane. Shane, weekly predictions are one thing. We'll get to those, but weekly plus season predictions for JMU. Again, to get my usher on for a moment. When I was out of the area, I had JMU over 8.5 wins, and I had JMU at 4-1 to win the Sun Belt Conference. I know people have concerns, but my banking is on Alonzo Barnett being healthy and ready to go and being the starter, and the fact that if that's the case, I'm very high on what he can do. What are yours for the Dukes? Not just this Saturday, but this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the favorite to win the Sun Belt. I really do. Louisiana is going to be pretty good, and they're going to play in the regular season. So, that's a game that possibly could decide things if we're getting ahead of ourselves. But, I think JMU at 4-1 to win the Sun Belt is a really solid bet. It's a little tougher for me to pick a number overall because their non-conference schedule is pretty challenging. They go on the road to Liberty. That's going to be a heck of a game in a really crazy environment. They go to Louisville, and that's a winnable game, but I don't know if they're ever going to be favored to win that one. Washington State coming in November. We really don't know what to expect from that one until we see more of both teams. So, it's hard for me to say, they're definitely going to win at least 9 games, because there's definitely some question marks on that non-conference schedule that they could be really good and still take some losses.
There's a good point to that. Louisville is particularly one of note as far as losses, but it's always a win. The insight from Shane Metlin, and he shares it with us in the fast lane. Shane, great to be speaking with you. Good to chat, and thank you for your time today.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Now to the Virginia Cavaliers.
JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Hootie, we made it. It's game week now for the Virginia Cavaliers. You mentioned in one of your articles, key to turning around UVA football is winning at Scott Stadium, and that starts this coming Saturday against Coastal Carolina. Your dog would even agree with that, so kudos to your dog on understanding that. If it were my house, that would trigger 3 other dogs in our house to bark, and the neighborhood dogs, and it would get even more loud, so don't be worried about your dog. But the reality...
I think they're a fan of yours, Sid.
I will take all the fans I can get at this point, Hootie, and they will take all the ones that want to show up at Scott Stadium. Is it a chicken and egg theory of getting them winning football? And does that begin in a positive way with Virginia, not just winning against Coastal this weekend, but passing the eye test?
Yeah, I think so, Ed. It's the schedule set up pretty good for these guys to get off to a good start with 4 of the first 5 games at home, and against people like Coastal Carolina, William & Mary, and Stanford. Before Florida State comes to town in late September. But, Yeah, if you look back at the success that Bronco Mendenhall was able to build, he one of the keys there was winning at home. I mean, there was a stretch over parts of 4 seasons where they won 22 out of 25 home games, and certainly that helped fuel their 2019 Coastal Championship and Orange Bowl appearance, and then a win over South Carolina in Charlotte in the bowl game and the year before. So I think it's pivotal for these guys to be able to win at home, and certainly their last I looked, I think they were a 12-point favorite over Coastal in this coming Saturday's opening game, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of crowd shows up, and I would think it would give people, something to celebrate that if they can win by what they're predicted to win by, and give them a little bit of momentum going forward. Certainly the huge game early on is the following week at NC State, but if they can get off to a good start those first 5 weeks of the season at home, they could do something pretty special.
So we'll follow it up with this, Hootie. My proclamation is 6 has to be a minimum for this coaching staff to keep their job. I think 7 or more is where you start to be able to say, all right, I can feel good about where things might be going, even with the easy schedule and the revamped roster. Where am I off base in that observation? Where am I on point?
No, I think you're totally on point. I can't see these guys winning less than 6 games and going to a cold weather bowl game, which, it's not a lot to get excited about, but it's progress. They could win more than 6 if they win their share of the close games. They'll play probably 4 or 5 50-50 type games where in the past they haven't done so well because they've made dumb mistakes in the fourth quarter and didn't have a lot of depth. And the focus in the entire training camp has been to eliminate those kind of disciplinary mistakes, and certainly they've addressed the depth problem. So if they can do that, they should win 7 games and possibly more if they can upset a couple of people and do what they're supposed to do. But I think it sets up nicely for them if they can just eliminate beating themselves, which has cost them dearly past 2 seasons.
No doubt it has, but it doesn't cost anything to get great insight. It's a click away at jerryratcliffe.com. Jerry, thank you for your time in the fast lane. It'll be a couple of weeks before I see you up there for the William & Mary game, but we look forward to chatting again in another week to recap week 1. We made it.
Look forward to it, Ed. See you soon.
Now to the Virginia Tech Hokies
with Chris Coleman of TechSideline.com. Joining us in the fast lane, Chris Coleman TSL on Twitter to keep up with him there, as well as the TSL podcast, the rotating host of guests on that particular podcast, which is part of my rotation as well in the fast lane. Well, actually not in the fast lane, but when I'm usually at the gym, something that Chris Coleman would no doubt appreciate. Chris, great to be speaking with you. First of all, congratulations. We made it to game week, even though we have to wait an extra day till that 1 p.m. airtime for Virginia Tech, South Carolina, down in Atlanta, right here on the VTRN Sports app.
Yeah, eventually you just get tired of writing in the month of August and you're just ready to get down and see some football. Unfortunately, we get to see that starting this weekend.
We definitely do for Virginia Tech. Expectations against South Carolina. Is it an outright win? Is it to cover the spread that has dropped from 10, 9.5, all the way down to 7, 7.5? Where are your realistic expectations of what you would like to see in the opener for Virginia Tech compared to last year, especially?
My expectations are to show up and look competent and try to get the most out of your ability. There were so many times where Virginia Tech didn't do that last season, and they lost close games because of it. They did not look competent against Vanderbilt, and they lost a close game. They did not look competent against Rutgers, and they lost a close game. Obviously, South Carolina is a much different animal. more talent than those two teams I just mentioned, a lot more talent, but Virginia Tech, I think, has improved their coaching. So, win, lose, whatever, just go out and look competent. I want to come away from that game feeling, like, okay, Virginia Tech coached well enough. They were prepared well enough to win that football game, whether they win it or not.
Because there's no edition of the Fast Lane Monday in the Fast Lane, although we will have college football Monday. Heck, we're going to have college football every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday right here on the VTRN Sports app. But because there's no edition of the Fast Lane Monday, we'll have to wait till Tuesday to ask you this about the vibes around Virginia Tech. When we talk next Tuesday, or maybe it's David Cunningham or Andy Bitter, depending on how things go in Atlanta, Chris, is the vibe going to be Virginia Tech looked better and won? Virginia Tech looked better, but there's a level of urgency because you don't want to start 0-2 against Vanderbilt? Or is it going to be, oh my goodness, they didn't look great, and if they don't get a win against Vanderbilt, it could all go off the rails?
I expect that second one that you mentioned. That's going to be my game prediction, I think. I don't know. I haven't studied South Carolina closely yet. I'll start getting into that a little bit more tomorrow or Wednesday. My gut feel is that Virginia Tech is going to give them a better game than most Virginia Tech fans expect the Hokies to do. Part of the reason there's so much newness in the coaching ranks, and with a bunch of new players on Virginia Tech, and it's really hard to study all that film and then try to put it all together. I think if you're South Carolina, that's a problem Virginia Tech ran into early last season with Vanderbilt with some of the coaching changes they made. It's a shame that it kind of came to that, because if Virginia Tech had won 8 or 9 games last year like they should have, then nobody would be saying much at all if Virginia Tech lost this game to South Carolina, right? It becomes a bigger deal. People spotlight it even more when they're already questioning things, which of course everybody was doing after last season. So for me personally, I mean, unless it doesn't mean a lot if Virginia Tech loses the game. I know if they go out there and get trounced by 30 or 40 or something like that, then I think the writing's on the wall. But I think we'll learn more about the team over the course of the 4 games after South Carolina, then we'll learn about it maybe during the South Carolina game itself.
Chris Coleman, TSL, that's his Twitter, because techsideline.com is what that stands for. And of course, Chris is with us in the Fast Lane. Chris, because you're going to have your game preview at techsideline.com later this week, and you'll be discussing it on the TSL podcast as we get closer to South Carolina, Virginia Tech, 1 p.m. Sunday, right here on the VTRN Sports app. For those that are traveling around, people do listen on that app, just again to get that clarification in. But for those that are out there that may be consuming it, it means we'll pivot to a different question for you, Chris, and that being this: for Virginia Tech, is it more likely they would get West Virginia because the SEC has 9 conference games starting next season, and it will eliminate a lot of those teams from potentially being on the schedule? The Big Ten already has 9, so it's kind of down to the Big 12 if you wanted to fill that with a power program. Is it mean the ACC is going to eventually go to 9, and there's Notre Dame some years, so you're eliminating other scenarios? How does this 9-game SEC schedule impact Virginia Tech in their future scheduling?
I expect it means Virginia Tech's also going to go, or the ACC, the ACC is also going to go to 9 games. So, nothing like being the last team to the party. But in this case, I'm kind of glad they were, because I actually loathe the thought of a 9-game scheduling. I hate some years, some teams are going to have 5 home games and some teams are going to have 4 home games. I just think that's a stupid way to do things. And if you're going to go to 9, you might as well go to 10. So it's even for everybody, and you get to play more conference opponents that way. So the scheduling is at least a little bit more balanced. But as far as West Virginia goes, just looking at they're in the Big 12, who also plays 9 games, and just looking at their schedule, I think they're pretty much scheduled out through 2029, 2030, something like that. And then the 2 years after that, they've already got 2 power conference teams scheduled. So to schedule Virginia Tech in those years, they would have to, if they really want to take on a third Power 4 team non-conference, that means they're playing 12 Power 4 conference teams on their schedule. I don't think they would want to do that. So for that game to happen, something's going to have to change as far as both teams' scheduling. Because, the ACC, Virginia Tech just dropped those road games against Old Dominion, and you're like, oh, sweet, some spots on the schedule opened up. Well, now those spots are just going to be taken by that ninth ACC game most likely. So I don't know if it changes very much from a non-conference scheduling standpoint. I know Virginia Tech needs to get in that Charlotte game, man. West Virginia and Virginia are playing each other twice in Charlotte in like the next 6 years. So why is like Virginia Tech not in that game? Why is Virginia in that game? A program that, I realize there's probably some UVA fans listening to this, but like it's not. Football is not UVA's thing, right? Like the fan base, it just isn't there. Like Virginia Tech fans really, really care. And that's Virginia Tech and West Virginia. That has heat. Virginia and West Virginia doesn't have heat. That should be Virginia Tech versus West Virginia in those games, in my opinion.
You're preaching to the choir on that one. I'm the guy that believes West Virginia would be better in the ACC than half of these boutique schools that they brought in that have no real passionate fan base. Boston College, Syracuse, sorry to Geo Heater, Wake Forest. I could keep coughing about some of those, but particularly some in the northern areas. Meanwhile, Chris, we appreciate your time in the fast lane. We look forward to your game preview article at techsideline.com, the podcast dropping, and more of these type of offseason discussions for the offseason, which thankfully is a long ways away now.
That's right, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Chris Coleman with us here to wrap up part one of covering the Commonwealth. When we return in the fast lane, part two, including with some money that has come in. We'll explain, you might already know, when we return here in the fast lane.
Savings are heating up, and so are the summer super deals at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. You don't need super strength to get approved for credit. Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is super easy on the Motor Mile with financing options for every budget. Sheeler makes car buying easy with the hottest brands all in one location. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Over 900 used vehicles in stock now and ready to move. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, and savings. Need some summer spending cash? Sheeler will buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Plus super money for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with over 900 used vehicles in stock now. No games, no gimmicks, just summer super deals at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer, locally owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hot weather is right around the corner. Save money on those summer cooling bills by upgrading those old drafty windows. Discover energy efficient, easy cleaning tilt-in windows now with Collins Custom Builders. Our customers have relied on us for 35 years to provide the best in windows, siding, gutters, and more. Plan early and call today for your free estimate. Find us online at collinscustombuilders.com.
It's the ultimate Beamer battle. Be there when the Virginia Tech Hokies and Shane Beamer South Carolina Gamecocks battle it out at the Aflac kickoff game. Experience the electrifying atmosphere and cheer for the Hokies live. Secure your seats and be part of the action. Head over to aflackog.com now to purchase your tickets. That's aflackog.com to purchase your tickets to the Aflac kickoff game Sunday, August 31st.
Don't miss the final days of our big summer sales event at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Get a new 2025 Ram 1500 and save up to $10,000 off MSRP. Choose a new 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee and get retail bonus cash up to $3,500 off MSRP. Hurry in for huge final days discounts on over 230 pre-owned vehicles. It's almost over. Get to our big summer sales event at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford, 1750 Independence Boulevard. MagicCityBedford.com.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Never a dull moment. Not just this past weekend in the press box in Landover, Maryland, because, well, we'll get to that right now.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with, just for you haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Candy Waller, Madam President of Bowie TV Sports. Her colleague, Karita Parks, was there because it's Ravens Commanders, traditional preseason finale in the Beltway area. Lake Lewis, who will be with Trey and Ty on the morning warm-up tomorrow from 7 to 8 a.m., back in the normal Tuesday slot. He was there, among other luminaries who were at that particular venue. Candy, thank you for joining us in the Fast Lane. They did you at least the favor of letting you get a night's rest before all chaos has broken loose, particularly today with the contract extension given out to wide receiver Terry McLaurin. 3 years, $96 million tacked on to his current contract in D.C. Your impressions of this deal that finally settles it and allows the Commanders to put this behind them?
I am just so glad it's over. As you all know, I really, really enjoy talking football and all the good stuff. And so this was something that I thought really put a damper on, even the success that they had last year. It definitely illuminated that there were some issues internally, and why would anybody want there to be any issues with Terry McLaurin? So I'm glad that it's over. Hopefully both sides are happy and ready to focus on week one.
Meanwhile, somebody who will not be joining the Washington Commanders is Trey Hendrickson. That news coming down in the last hour from first Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, because who else would break those stories, that Hendrickson, the defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals, agrees to an extension with Cincinnati. We look at this, though, from the Washington Commanders angle of, were they ever expecting Hendrickson to be a realistic trade candidate, or was he more of a, they did their due diligence and had ideas out there in case it got to the point a trade was allowed?
I mean, I think that there's always an opportunity to make a call. And that's one of the things that Adam Peters shared with us last year, where it's like, people call all the time, or people ask crazy questions all the time, and they hang up on you, or you hang up on them, or whatever the case may be. Of course, it would have been, outstanding if that could have been possible, but I don't think the Commanders have the draft capital to, pay for a player of Trey Hendrickson's caliber. I mean, I know I had heard from Cincinnati media colleagues that they were not going to trade Trey. And especially after they saw preseason, it was like, hey, you definitely need him on defense. And Trey was coming around the team as everyone saw him Monday Night Football. He was here in the area with his team when they took on the Commanders. So another situation that I am glad to see worked out as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was last Monday. You kind of got the impression if a deal was going to happen with the Commanders and Trey Hendrickson, probably would have happened after that game, and the further away it went from it, the less likely a deal was to transpire. Meanwhile, another deal that did take place, the Commanders got a little bit of draft capital, shipping Brian Robinson to the 49ers for a 6th-round draft pick. Was this more just finding a viable home for a guy that it seemed like they liked in Washington on a personal level, but he's not a special teams guy? All the other backs seemed to bring that to the table, and inevitably that was a deal breaker for Washington.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, as Dan Quinn shared, it's just about the fit and what they're looking for. They definitely pride themselves on versatility. All the other running backs in that room played special teams. Brian Robinson Jr. did not. If you all may have seen already, and Brian Robinson is going to be up there as their number 2 back. So that was another thing. Is Brian Robinson Jr. an actual number 1 back? I think everyone answered that question. No, he is not. The 49ers have answered that question and having him come in as their number 2. So I think it worked out for both sides. Kyle Shanahan, shared with the media that he was really pumped that Brian was available. He liked him a lot coming out of college. So sounds like that's a fit. The Commanders also getting a 6th round, able to get a 6th round pick, in the Debo trade. They had to send the 5th over. So it works out.
Candy Waller, it always works out when we can connect with you. You've got a commitment at the top of the hour, so we'll let you go today. But yes, next week, all this contract and trade stuff is behind us. We can look toward that when the offseason gets here. In the meantime, football will be on the brain as we get ready for the opener and chat next, not Monday, but Tuesday, since there's no show Labor Day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you guys next Tuesday.
Our pleasure. Candy Waller, and we thank her, by the way.
Now to NASCAR.
Steven Stumpf of FrontStretch.com was at Daytona for that thrilling finish. Steven, could you afford to ship 7 beers, much less 7 million beers, to Ryan Blaney, which I don't know if he'll actually get it, but that's what Alex Bowman said is owed to Ryan Blaney, because Bowman gets into the chase for the NASCAR championship barely literally by hundredths of a second and inches of a car, Blaney knocking out 3 potential challengers, and instead we get a repeat winner at Daytona.
I mean, what else can I say other than that was just simply an incredible finish, and it wasn't just, a bunch of crash fests and then 2 laps decided. It was 8 laps, everyone going all out, and it's unbelievable how it worked out. The finish wasn't the gridlock we typically see in these races in the next gen car, that there was a third lane. You could make moves. Blaney went from 13th to first in just the final 2 laps. And it felt like everyone that was in a must-win situation was trying their best to keep the other must-win drivers behind. That allowed him to sneak into the picture, and just take the win at the last moment. But I mean, yeah, what a win for him. That clinched Blaney the second in regular season points. So we got a nice little bonus of playoff points for that. It's his second win of the season. And yeah, as you said, if you're Alex Bowman, maybe not 7 million, but I'd send him. He's probably going to send him as many beers as he can.
Yes, he probably will, and justifiably so, because that Ryan Blaney win gets Alex Bowman into the playoffs along with Tyler Reddick. You do get a couple of points drivers, but the bigger question we'll ask Steven Stumpf at Steven_Stumpf on Twitter and with FrenchStretch.com here in the Fast Lane. How do you account for the fact that you get races like Martinsville late in the playoffs, where all of a sudden the racing is good, even though the car may not make it? Daytona, this one. Tapered spacers have not been good at Talladega and Daytona and relative to what they could be. Neff will kill me for suggesting the shorter races idea, but what needs to happen, because the car makes it challenging, but it's not impossible to produce good racing. As I could be wrong here, but I thought we saw that pretty much from the drop of the green flag on Saturday.
I think the solution is you need to fix the stages. The way it's played out, the first stage you could make it to the end in one tank. And it seemed like strategy-wise, there just wasn't much of an opportunity for the drivers to have to save fuel or need to save fuel. So I think, I guess the way I put it is, the way the first 2 stages are set up is that it starts the fuel saving from the beginning, and then that kind of carries over in the rest of the race. But that was not the case this time, as everyone was going all out, and just the way the cautions fell. It's a matter of luck, and I don't think we should have intentional cautions at certain points of the race beyond the stages to make the fuel mileage perfect. But the less fuel saving, the better, and I think that's what helped contribute to making this an awesome race.
Steven Stumpf of FrenchStretch.com with us in the Fast Lane. Steven, we'll wrap it up on this. NASCAR plans to transfer the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports charters. That news came out earlier today. Certainly there are cases back and forth. Does this mean that something's going to happen sooner than later? Does this put those teams in jeopardy right now, or is this just more part of the ongoing legal back and forth between 2311 and Front Row against NASCAR?
Well, there will be a hearing that the teams will have on Thursday to try and stop NASCAR from selling the charters, and basically saying that the charters won't be sold off until the results of the lawsuit. So it's definitely, I think things have definitely escalated really quickly in the last couple of months, ever since the injunction got taken away and the teams lost the charters, at least for now. But I think it's the next step in the process. We'll see what happens later in this week. And, only about 3 months now until the trial starts December 1st.
Yes, something to look forward to in the offseason, said with a level of sarcasm. Steven Stumpf of FrenchStretch.com. No sarcasm. The insight is great there at Steven_Stumpf on Twitter and FrenchStretch.com. Steven, it's our pleasure to have you back in the Fast Lane. Always look forward to it, and we'll enjoy the racing action. Southern 500 to kick off the playoffs this weekend.
Well, one of my favorite weekends. Excited to see who wins it.
You and me both. Steven Stumpf, FrenchStretch.com, with us here in the Fast Lane on W227BG Timberlake, WVGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna, Danville, Southside.
And last but not least, or maybe least, the Lynchburg Hillcats.
Well, it was exciting, but not always the best action from a Lynchburg Hillcats perspective. You could go with the chicken and egg theory, but the big one that jumped out is even in the Lynchburg Hillcats victories over the weekend, the pitching staff was not necessarily as dominant as you need it to be when you get ready for postseason play. Jason Pro, broadcaster for the Lynchburg Hillcats, with us here in the Fast Lane. Jason, going to be chatting with you. Is that the concern for you for the Lynchburg Hillcats, that they lost 4 of 6 against Hickory, but more so the concern is even in the wins, they didn't exactly look like a team that had the stable pitching, not awful all the time, but not stable that you want?
You know what, Ed? I'm not exactly overly concerned about it. Obviously, you don't want to give up as many runs as we did over the past week. However, when you get to the postseason, you got 3 games. You only need 3 starters, and you can really cherry pick your bullpen a little bit more. So you're picking your best guys each and every single time out there. The bullpen guys will probably go twice in the series. You may only have 2 games, so you may only need 2 starting pitchers. So that eases the load a little bit more. It allows you to be more flexible and allows you to pitch your best guys. And so I expect the Hillcats to be just fine because they do have at least 2, maybe 3 starting pitchers and a handful of bullpen guys that can go in and dominate in the postseason.
So you mentioned the pitching being better than it was against Hickory this weekend. As the Lynchburg Hillcats get ready for their final regular season homestand of the season, they'll wrap up against Delmarva next Tuesday through Sunday the 7th, and then postseason baseball begins. Lynchburg doesn't get a game until the 11th of September, so a couple of weeks away. But as you get closer to that, where are you looking for the Hillcats also this weekend to be able to show what they need to give you more confidence heading into this stretch run?
Well, I want to see them be competitive in this series. Fredericksburg is the team right at the top of the Carolina League North right now. They're competing for that playoff spot in the second half. So this is potentially a playoff preview. So the Hillcats need to go out and they need to compete. I'm looking for the big names to step up. I'm looking for the guys who were just drafted to continue on using their bats and using their skills. Riley Nelson has been on an absolute tear since arriving in Lynchburg. I'm looking for him to keep going. I'm looking at Aaron Walton to keep up his pace. And we need these guys to really step up. And so if they can do that and they can remain competitive all throughout this series, they don't need to win every game, but they at least need to be competitive. Because like I said, you're going to play your best guys in the postseason. Fredericksburg has just come down with the injury bug over the past couple days, so they're losing a lot of guys. I think this is a moment to strike, and it's a moment to give us a good litmus test heading into the postseason.
Yes, indeed, it is. It's a moment, and you can get your tickets at Lynchburg-Hillcats.com or some with the $10 food voucher at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Jason, always good to catch up with you. Thank you for your time today in the Fast Lane.
Absolutely. Anytime, Ed.
Jason Pro with us here in the Fast Lane. That does it for us today. Now on to VSiN's Make It Rain, already in progress.
Stefanski was asked after the preseason game, like,